Hello, fashion people.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for coming and listen to me and Stephen Jones. Actually, for the first time, I'm going to have an interview with a hat on that coincidentally...
Which is not one of mine,
That
actually.
is not Stephen Jones'
Sorry,
hat.
just stop now.
And you're wearing a blue hat too,
Yeah.
straw hat. Stephen, as you all know, is the wizard of hat making. He's been creating some beautiful headpieces for some time. And I think he's one of the most prolific creative geniuses in the fashion world. He's seen and done a lot. I love that the theme of our talk is once reality, a world of fantasy. So here we're going to talk about fantasy and reality, possibly. Maybe more fantasy than reality.
Well, I think, you know, the purpose of fashion is to create its own reality. Well, I think we're advancing.
I think they're going by themselves.
Are they going by themselves? Oh, let's stop on that one.
By fantasy, actually.
Yeah, by fantasy. No, I mean, the purpose of fashion is to create a fantasy. I think that's a really important part of it. The rest of our lives can be about driving to work or, you know, coping with a bank manager or something, but actually fashion is really about entertainment. I mean, clothing, of course, is about protecting you, but fashion is entertainment.
I'd love, you know, when I went through all the images and, you know, how to start a conversation with Stephen Jones is rather difficult because there is so much there, so much to show, so many exhibitions, so many creations. So I decided to start from the latest challenge that Stephen had to do. He created almost 140 hats for the latest exhibition at the Met Institute in New York for the exhibition China Through the Looking Glass. And I'd love you to tell us all about it because there is a lot going on here, and I'd love to go one by one and tell us more of the inspiration behind every creation.
Well, I think, first of all, not everybody might know what the Metropolitan Museum and the Fashion Institute is, and the Gala and all that world. Really, sort of the absolute vortex of the fashion business and the center of the fashion world is the exhibition at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, and there's a gala hosted by Anna Wintour. And every year they put on an exhibition on a particular theme. Very famously, there was the Alexander Mcqueen exhibition, which is now on in London, a few years ago. And this year they decided to do something called China Through the Looking Glass, which was all the misunderstandings and the cultural exchange between East and West, specifically Western Europe and China. So that was the background, and I know the curator Andrew Bolton, and about a year ago he said to me, this is what we're going to be doing. It's a little bit like Christmas windows. On the 26th, they start planning the next year. So I already knew what it was going to be about. And in fact, it was only in February that one day I had a phone call from him, because I thought, well, I'm not doing it. And he said, well, actually, Stephen, we'd like you to create some hats or headdresses or something.
Well, I suppose, you know, China has always been a great inspiration for so many people. I mean, from the time of Marco Polo, when he used to travel there and come back with these most incredible silks and designs and patterns. How easy and how difficult was to create something original for today?
Well, it was a strange experience for me because, you know, all the researchers, the Met is maybe the most professional art institution in the world. They've been working on it for about 2 or 3 years. And whereas it's always been an inspiration to me, I felt like a complete amateur because I was trying to come up with ideas or designs or whatever about a subject that I really felt I didn't know that much about. But then I realized that in fact that was the story of the exhibition, was about misinterpretation, about how, for example, Westerners loved Chinese porcelain, Chinese porcelain makers created what they imagined were Western patterns, then it became fashionable in China. So in fact the design process that I was going through was the same as the design process as, you know, had gone on for hundreds of years.
Yes.
But how did I do it? I just sat down. You know, people always ask me, oh, so do you use a computer design? No, I use a pad and a pencil.
So we got here some of the images, of
Oh,
course,
yeah,
with
yeah.
the pencil and the piece of paper, and then how it started and how it was created in a way. So I don't know if you want to tell us, maybe
Well,
in a
first
brief
of
way.
all, this
Yes.
one. I work with lots of different fashion designers, and we'll come on to that later. But there's many fashion designers who I don't work with. I mean, most famously, I do not work with Alexander Mcqueen because that's Philip Tracy's territory. So it was quite funny actually when suddenly I had to create a dress to go, a hat to go with this dress. And you think about the design. I knew Lee Mcqueen a little bit, not very well at all, but I know Sarah Burton quite well. And it was trying to imagine what he would want to have a hat from me. And I felt for it, and I really tried to channel this. I really thought, well, if he was coming to me, he'd want something very different to what he would get from Philip. So he'd want something, lighter and maybe more frivolous and less sculptural. So that's why I came up with this design, and this was sort of metallized print. And this was my drawing of it. And this was actually based on the film called The Shanghai Gesture.
Okay.
This was some of the hairdos. And the Yves Saint Laurent collection of 1972, I think it was, which was his famous Chinese collection, which is when he launched the opium fragrance and everything, actually was based on that film. It was not based on China itself, it was based on the Western idea. So that was a Mcqueen dress. This is actually a Dries van Noten outfit. This was my sketch.
It's more readable, no? It's a dragon.
Yeah. Well, in fact, in one particular floor, it's a huge exhibition. Some of the exhibition is actually the Costume Institute, and some of it is in the Chinese galleries. Now, the Chinese galleries are huge, and within this one particular area, they had all the dragon robes, which were lent by the Palace Museum in Beijing. And on the imperial robes, they had various motifs which represented the emperor. For example, there was the dragon, which represented magic and power. There was a bat, which represented sort of sixth sense, all sorts of different things. So I created hats, or headdresses, which sort of communicated those ideas. And really what I wanted to do was not make hats, it was sort of almost more a thing of display, which is why the technique of the making of the hats always matched the mannequins that were wearing them.
Okay. And what about, this is, literally from the most traditional ideas of, symbols of China
into
into
Vivian
something.
Tam, yeah.
Exactly. Then we can go
Actually, if we
this
go back,
one.
because this is quite interesting. They had many, many problems because the Chinese government didn't want to allow this dress to be shown.
Oh, really?
Because it shows Chairman Mao with pigtails and one with a fly on his nose.
Oh, yes.
In fact, a lot of clothes had to be withdrawn, which were from the National Museum of China, because the directors of the Met felt it was very important to respect the curatorial essay that Andrew had provided, and sort of avoiding a big international incident between America and China.
In fashion, can you imagine?
In fashion, yeah, I feel a bit sort of superficial coming after that very important talk we had. But if fashion was not important, why on earth would the fashion industry be so big and we be here at all?
Exactly. And now this is a fantastic image showing more of the the traditional patterns of the robes from. Sorry, I don't know why it goes by itself.
It's magic.
It is magic. We're talking about that. So
special Turkish magic.
Yeah.
So these are the ancient robes, and these are the dresses that were inspired by them. So on the left, this is Tom Ford for Yves Saint Laurent, and the one in the middle. But the one on the right is Poiret from 1923.
Okay.
Amazing. And this is the representation of a pheasant. This is an axe on the right, and the one in the middle is a fantastic story. I don't know if you can't really see on these Chinese robes, but this ball is actually, if you look at a pattern, there's always two dragons, and thunder and lightning. Actually, the reason that they occur is because these two dragons are fighting with a ball, playing with a ball, passing them between them. And this ball is actually a pearl with flames coming out of it. That's why I created something like that.
And does these really have the signs of headpieces? Very much like things to go with dresses rather than having hats.
Yeah.
Then again,
these were actually Dior outfits
Okay.
from the first season of the first Pret-a-Porter at Dior.
Mhm.
And these were hats that I had created, silhouettes of hats that I created many years ago.
Okay.
Um,
And again here,
So-
we can see.
Of course, there were a lot of gold mannequins, and that was the main thing during the exhibition. But again, there was a whole sequence of rooms which were about porcelain. Yeah.
Sorry,
And-
it just moves with it.
And these porcelain outfits
Yeah.
were all blue and white, and there was also a parallel story of how Chinese porcelain influenced Delft porcelain, all blue and white. And these were a series of dresses. This one's by Valentino. There's from many different designers. There's Dior, there's Giambattista Valli, who fortunately was able to make it today and is
Yes.
going to be the next speaker after me.
Actually, don't go away after Stephen because
Yeah,
Giambattista is going
Jamba's
to
actually
jump.
here and he's baited and he's getting changed at the moment.
Yeah, it's showering actually. It's not good.
So he's nice and clean too.
Yes. So this was
And
this
this was-
inspired by.
Yeah, this was a ginger jar.
Okay.
And as well as what the Met did this time, was as well as exhibiting just clothes, they exhibited relevant objects next to them. So within the porcelain galleries, there was a pot of exactly this silhouette, which was a ginger jar. And when I was looking at it, I was looking through all the papers which were coming through. I realised this was exactly the same silhouette as a 60s hairdo. So that's, and there they all are. And this was plates and broken plates.
And the broken plates.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's fantastic how your creative mind goes from proper, both from Mcqueen to some broken plates. I mean, it's actually genius to see anything can be an inspiration for you.
Well, for my own collection, I sort of live my life and to put it into a hat. But when you're working with a fashion designer, or even if the fashion designer is not there, you're trying to imagine what they would be doing.
So what would you imagine with some broken plates?
Well, the middle two are Rodarte, and I know that Rodarte have, they didn't go to fashion college. In a funny way, they have quite a broken view of fashion. They do things in their own way. They think of feminine beauty in an original way, which is why Anna Wintour actually sponsored them for very many years. And so that's why I want to do something with broken porcelain. The one on the right, which is a Chanel, the one not extreme right, the centre right. This is a Chanel
this one.
outfit, and Carl is so much about control. So that was more about how he is. This was actually one of his first collections for Chanel. I think it was 1985.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought I'd need to have something quite controlled. So in a funny way, those decisions are done in an arbitrary and sort of superficial way. But in a strange way, when hats become too clever, they become less good.
Right.
What you have to do is have a certain sort of simplicity and clarity of vision of what you do. What's the most charming hat in the world is when you pick up a flower and you tuck it behind your ear. That's the most beautiful thing. It's not something that you've laboured over for months and months and months. So, in a funny way, for dress designers it's different, and I wonder how it is for jewellers. But I
can tell us tomorrow.
Yeah, tell us tomorrow, Delphina. But with hats, what's so important is to have a sort of a spontaneity.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps a freshness, and I think that's what people want when you're creating.
Absolutely. Talking about the Chanel pieces and knowing how Karl Lagerfeld can be controlling, did you have to approve your creation?
No.
Okay.
It was actually quite funny because none of the design houses knew that I was working on it. And when the clothes, it's sort of amazing for those who don't know. If you are in the Met in New York and you borrow an outfit from Chanel, they don't just send it in an envelope. They actually send it with somebody. There's a courier. And quite often, the dress is in a box in business class, sitting next to you, because it's actually considered, and within textiles and within fashion, it's no different to shipping a Goya or an amazing piece of jade from China.
Yeah.
They're considered in the same way. So all the called couriers come from all the different institutions, whether they're fashion houses like Dior and Chanel, or Musée de la Mode, or the Louvre. And they arrived, and Andrew Bolton announced to them that actually the hat that you've had restored and is supposed to go with the outfit is not going to be used, but Stephen Jones has created some special things, which most of them were quite worried about. And telephone calls did go back to head office, which were all okay, apart from Pierre Berger at Yves Saint Laurent. And in a funny way, quite rightly, he said, well, Monsieur Saint Laurent created the outfit in that way, so we believe it should be shown in that way. And so wrote me a very sweet email. I had made hats to go with the outfit, to go with Saint Laurent. But there again, I guess I'm destined not to work with someone, so that's it.
Okay, so going through quickly,
this is Gui Pei. He's a Chinese designer.
Okay.
And this was a huge dress, and this was in the Buddhism gallery, and there are extraordinary sculptures of Buddha all the way around. It's probably about 4 or 5 times the size of this room. It's huge. And in the center was this enormous dress, and so this was a lotus, but of course, you have to imagine if you were putting a lotus on your head, and I can't position a lotus on your head, if the lotus was representative of Buddhism, it wouldn't be on the top of your head, it would be sort of flying, it would be hovering between you and heaven, which is why. So there's always a madman's logic. It makes sense to me if it makes sense to nobody else.
That is such a great idea. That's why there is that little...
a little post, which is almost symmetrical, but not quite.
Now we recognize him.
Oh,
We
yeah.
recognize you here. Yes.
This is again with Valentino dresses, contemporary ones.
Yeah. The collection that they created for Shanghai, right?
Yeah. And this is a Jean-Paul Gaultier outfit, and this was wuxia, which is like kung fu, and it's all these mystical martial arts, and they're plays and cartoons and films as well. And this was an extraordinary set which was made from Perspex tubes.
Okay.
And if you are in New York over the next 3 or 4 months, please do go and see the exhibition. It is quite extraordinary.
For the hats particularly, right? Yes.
Well, not only for the hats. There's some nice clothes there too. But this was a piece of bamboo with lots of little holes, and what you can't see here is actually the whole thing lit up.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. And now here is you working with
this is Andrew Bolton and John Galliano
and Hamish
Bowles. And this is an absolutely extraordinary outfit. It's unnamed.
Sorry, it keeps on, I don't know why.
Yeah. It's an unnamed outfit. It's from about 1915, and it is the same pattern as as the imperial robes, but all executed in quilting. And this was a hat which was a representation of mountains. It was quilted in velvet.
What's over it?
It's gold leather, and nobody knows why. There's just one part which hasn't got gold leather, but it is a beautiful, beautiful piece.
Just this here. Then we love this last picture that is actually Stephen at the Met Gala, so that is when the exhibition officially opens.
Yeah.
And you were with someone wearing one of your creations.
Yeah,
now,
this is Elizabeth von Turner Taxis. Who's, this is the sad thing about getting older, is that her mother and I were great friends in the early 80s, and she was gorgeous, and this is a Fausto Puglisi outfit, who is now the designer for Emmanuel Ungaro, which funnily enough is how I first met Giambattista Valli, because he was his main assistant with Monsieur Ungaro about 15-20 years ago. And the Met Ball is something extraordinary. It's $25,000 a ticket. And for that, you get a cold dinner. And probably not a drink. And if you're lucky, a glass of water. But it raises huge amounts of money for the Costume Institute, yeah. It raises at 13 million just one evening.
Elizabeth here is wearing your creation, right?
Yeah.
So that was adapted to the dress, so you knew what dress she was going to wear, and then
I knew what dress she was going to wear, and I knew that if we put something like that on her head, a motif like that, what else are you going to put? You're not going to put a flower with it, you're not going to put anything else, and it's an evening thing, and she has to be kissable. I'm just going to adjust this because it's scratching.
kissable. Yes, that's another good
Yeah,
point.
yeah. To be kissable is very important for a girl when she's out
At
at
a
a party,
social
you
event,
know, and
of
she's
course.
young and she's pretty, you know, of course.
Did she get a lot of kisses with that?
Yeah. She was kissing everybody. I
Okay,
think.
good.
Yeah. So I did the same thing, but transparent. It was the same motif, but in transparency.
Now, this is a great image because Stephen knows Istanbul well. He's been here many times, and it's so funny that we are here talking about the exhibition at the Met. Actually, this bridge between West and East. And again, Istanbul is the best place for the proper bridge of Western and Eastern cultures. Stephen was also here in 2011, I suppose, to have an exhibition at the Bacco in this own place.
In fact, the garden outside was completely covered over with a huge tent, and we had this exhibition. Funny enough, I need to tell you about that.
Yes.
Can we go back again?
Yes.
Funny anecdote about that photograph, and it's also to do with Craig McDean.
Okay.
Because Craig was Nick Knight's assistant for many years, and this photograph was taken by Nick Knight. And it was one of the series of pictures that he was taking. And it was when I was sort of, as you can see, I'm a few years younger. Nick had been in touch with me and said, I'm doing this series of photographs for The Face, actually Face magazine. And everybody else had been photographed, people who were around at that time, Body Map, Judy Blame, blah, 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 even like Thierry Mugler, and everybody, Edward Ennefel, age 16 when he was first modelling. And I just started to work in Paris, and I was working with Comme des Garçons, and I kept cancelling him. I mean, I was on the way over, and I said, terribly sorry, I've got to go to Paris, terribly sorry, I've got to go to Tokyo. And I think he was getting a bit bored with me, so he said, well, Stephen, I'm going to come to your studio and take your photograph. And he took just one picture with his Hasselblad,
and that was it.
And this is the picture. And as you can see, it's got this funny sort of piece of elastic hanging down from the hat on the right.
Yes.
And
there was
I
no
always said
retouching
you
that.
have, well, actually that was something that, there used to be huge amounts of retouching.
Handmade, right?
But hand done, which was, I think I'm making funny blowy sounds. Maybe that's,
Oh.
God. I think we have a malfunction here. Anyway, I'll just hold it like this, it's fine.
You want to swap? Or?
No, but it is dropping.
It's more professional talking like this.
Yeah.
Can everyone hear, right? Yes.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I could speak without, but it will make it weird. So, sorry, what was I talking about?
The piece of elastic.
The piece of elastic hanging down. Oh, and retouching.
The retouching.
And if you look at any photographs of the 20s and 30s, you will see absolutely that everything was retouched. Always has been. And it's so funny when you see about the whole sort of model thing, are they too skinny and everything, and the whole issue about photographs being retouched and giving women a bad body image. Yes, I completely agree with that. But since the beginning of fashion magazines, absolutely. I mean, even if you look at photographs of the Queen Mother from between the wars, I mean, her body shape is completely redone by Cecil Beaton.
With a very tiny waist.
With a very tiny waist, and they stretched her.
Yeah.
They, even when they exposed the film, they actually did it at an angle to stretch her to make her look taller. I mean, extraordinary. And this was in the 30s.
And they didn't take off your elastic from the picture.
No.
So going back to your experience in Istanbul, and when you created some. Okay, this is with the Demet actually.
The lovely Demet. Is she here at the moment? No. Well, she's here instead.
Okay, so we have her, but I'd love to show you all the hats that, or headpieces as you want to call them, that Stephen created, just inspired by Istanbul.
Yeah,
so
well,
I'd love you to tell us all about. Sorry, but these things go by themselves. For example, what is this? I know we are very. Can we have another? Do we have another?
Have we got to have another headset, please?
Is anyone?
Because I'm broken this one.
Is there any other? Anyway, so tell us about this one here.
Actually, I've got these hats here.
You have? Okay.
But of course, I have to let go of this.
Yeah. Well, what?
Oh, hang on a second.
I think you have to turn it on. They do it. try
Shall
to.
I can show.
Yes,
no,
there we
it's
go.
working. Okay, fine.
Oh, I didn't know you had all these hats here. That's fantastic.
Hmm?
I didn't know you had hats here to show
Yeah,
us.
yeah. When I came here, and this is an exhibition, it's actually I have to talk about fashion nowadays before we get onto this.
Okay.
Because it used to be that clothing was for wearing, then clothing had this sort of image, and it was in magazines, and there was a whole sort of way that the fashion business functioned, which existed until about 10 years ago. Then suddenly, what happened, especially, I work with Christian Dior, and I've worked there almost 20 years now, is that the end product of fashion is actually to be in an exhibition.
Right.
It's almost more important that there is something to display at the Met than in the windows of Bergdorf Goodman, because that actually is what generates the business. Because when you see a Giambattista Valli dress in the porcelain gallery, in the Met, then you will, go and buy a fragrance or go and buy the Jamba line, or it's
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
So that's how fashion has changed. So anyway, every 6 months, I create hat collections in the same way as that people create fashion collections, and every 6 months I have to come up with a fantastic new idea.
And fantastic names to name these collections. I really want you to go online to stephenjones.com, I suppose, just to look at the names.
StephenJonesMillinery.com.
Millinery.com, sorry, and to see the names, because they always make me happy, like Chinoiserie on Sea, Topsy Turvy, Drifting and Dreaming, Hot House, Garbo Gabo. I mean, and off we go.
Well, the thing is, when you make a hat, I think dress designers do it as well, but for me, when I'm creating a hat, you're making this whole little world that you put on your head, which has got, it's almost like another person, even though a hat is a costume. And women's magazines always say, not exactly W, by the way, but they always say, be your real self.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I think most girls I know exactly who they are, and actually would quite like to be something else. And that's what a hat can do for you. It can really transport you. So for me, when I'm creating a hat, it's all about creating a character that I put in the hat. I make hats, other people write plays, some people build houses. It's the same thing, it's just a different expression.
Absolutely, yeah. Come on, I want to see them.
So anyway, this is a hat. It all squashed in a box here, by the way. I'm going to take these ones out first of all. So this is one of the. This is a prototype for one of the hats in the Met, by the way. That was a prototype, and I just wanted to show you that anybody can make a hat. Oops. This was another prototype. This was for a hat called Seaweed, and so you see anybody could take a coat hanger, bend it, and put some cardboard leaves on. You see, so everybody could be a milliner. And eventually this was made out of resin, had little fish, and went with a fantastic dress. But these were some of the hats that I made inspired. Sorry, this is a little squashed, but let me push that here. So this was, the Blue Mosque, and it was this in silhouette. And it was quite a transparent hat, and that was the photograph of it. Yeah. It's now a little bit old and been squashed by British Airways, thank you very much. And then
we got here.
Yeah. And it's funny in a way, because yes, you're making a hat, and it's a very superficial thing to do, and you're using this motif, and this motif is a very ancient motif, and one of the things that I learned from my college, and one of the things that I learned in particular from working with John Galliano, is the value of research. And it's funny enough, what Craig said earlier was very pertinent. Yes, you do all this research, yes, you do that, because you really have to live it out. Yeah. But then, actually, what's important is this. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to try this on you.
You can try my hat.
Actually, maybe I should try it on you. Okay,
gosh.
hat off. Yes.
No pictures allowed. Yeah. No social media.
Take your pictures now. No, doesn't that look great? It's going to kill me afterwards. I know.
It's fine.
So that shape was important. Obviously, the colour. Then I really researched Iznik porcelain, and this was something that a little hat that I did based on this. I think it's probably the next one.
Yes.
Yeah. So
this is what it's made of.
This is made from tulle, which is like a net, and it's got glass beads on it. And actually, this is photographic filters. This is the thing I want to talk about Hussein. And you know, like in a theatre and in photo studios, they sometimes put a colour filter on the front. So this is what these are, and we colour matched it. We actually went to the Victoria and Albert Museum and looked at Isn't porcelain. I went with my little swatch book, and I was holding up the swatches of all the different colours in front of the porcelain to make sure I got exactly the right colour. As I couldn't find the right colour, then I got in touch with the people, Roscoe, who make it in California, and asked them if they could make the right colour for me. They then said that, you know, I had to order $20,000 worth of it. And so,
for a headpiece, exactly.
For a headpiece, and even I won't go that far.
Okay, so this is just, you know, to show how just an idea of a city, you know, can give an inspiration for Stephen. But where do you normally get your inspiration? When you say every 6 months you have to create a collection and, you know, come up, I mean, how does the creative process start for you?
I mean, I live my life and put it into a hat. It's as simple as that. So the reason that these hats came around was because I'd been here. But what happened was I actually went to the Royal Pavilion in Brighton, which was based on a 18th century idea of Orientalism. And, you know, in Britain, we tend to think that, you know, anything east of Calais is Oriental. You know, we have a very sort of island mentality that Asia starts just there. We sort of forget about France and Switzerland.
It's very British.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we like that. We're not like that nowadays, but I hope.
No.
I always felt very much European. I never felt at all British. Yeah.
But so do you think, talking about, you know, the pavilion in Brighton, is this the Chinoiserie on Sea?
It's Chinoiserie on Sea, and that is this weird mixture of Chinese, Hindu, Turkish, this sort of weird sort of foreign melange of things.
On a British coastline.
On the British coastline, under the grey skies of the British coastline. But it is the most magical place.
Yeah. Now, Stephen, as a next chapter of this talk, because we could speak with Stephen for hours and hours, as you can see, he's always ever so charming. Stephen has always been working with a lot of some of the best fashion designers, you know, collaborations from Hussein Chalayan to Comme des Garçons to Marc Jacobs for Louis Vuitton and Tom Brown and whatever. And I'd love to show you a little anthology of what you've been doing.
And this is the first one. This is Hussein.
Hussein Chalayan, okay.
Chalayan. And I've worked with him occasionally, not that often. But this is actually, if we go back, this is actually all the same dress, which was all motorized and changed in silhouette, and the hat changed as well. It
was moved by a remote control, not the hat moved. Directed.
But it was a bit like that remote control. Okay. It didn't work quite. Very fortunately, on the actual show, it worked perfectly. But yeah, it was a very, very fine silk brim, which had a little nylon wire, which pushed it out, so the whole thing changed shape. But Hussein, you know, is an extraordinary person, and next year at the Met, I know there's going to be many of his clothes featured, actually. So I think that will reassert his position as one of the world's most creative and inventive and original designers.
Well, you know, some of these dresses that he created were, you know, memorable at the time and still memorable now. Here again, it's another Saint Chalayan creation, right?
Yeah, what this was is the girl was wearing a chiffon dress, and she came out, and the hat lit up, and then the dress disappeared up into the hat, and it was all chopped up, and it came out sort of in a puff of smoke at the top of the hat.
Okay.
There's another one with frills coming underneath. This is Comme des Garçons.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was the I mean, we can see that it's a crown, but what was the inspiration about? I mean, did you how does it work, the creative process with the designer for that? Sorry,
let's go back.
Because
well, with Comme des Garçons, it's very different to anybody else. How are we doing for time?
Bad, but it's
okay. Well, it's a funny story. So, before half of you were born, in about 1984, I was sort of becoming a little well-known, and I was in a nightclub in Paris, and it was the day before I went to Japan for my first trip, and I was just about to leave the club, and this lady came up to me and said, "Oh, Stephen Jones, I really like your hat." So I started to chat. And Sibylle de Saint-Phal, my assistant, was saying, "Stephen, we have to be up in 3 hours and you're not packed." So, and she said, "You have to learn just to say thank you very much and walk away." We were actually going to Japan, and in those days, back in 1400, you actually had to fly via Anchorage because you couldn't fly over Russian airspace. So the next time that this happened was I was in the duty-free in Anchorage Airport in Alaska. And this Japanese lady came up to me and she said, "Oh, Stephen Jones, I like your hats." And I said, "Oh, thank you very much," and walked away. And
as you learned from your
as I learned from Sibylle, and I saw Sibylle like running towards me from the past the giant Toblerones, running towards me, and she said, "You idiot, that's Ray Kawakubo." So anyway, by the time we'd landed, she'd invited us to dinner, and I started to work with her. But of course, in those days, it was very difficult to communicate because this was actually pre-fax. So if I did a sketch in London, because it wasn't a document, it had to go through customs, it would probably take about a week or 8 days to get there. So yes, we did create hats, but after a while it just became too awkward. And then I started to work with them again about 10 years ago. And this is from about 10 years ago. And this was all based on the idea of, she loved the idea of empire. And she was very interested in this idea of the British Empire and imperialism. And it was actually a discourse about British imperialism and American imperialism.
Okay. Then we have a fun creation for Giles.
For Giles, which I love this. And this was, this is a Pac-Man. These are ghosts from the Pac-Man, and some of the most photographed hats we've ever done. We always do great hats together. And this is
another most photographed hat that was the swan.
Which is like this giant red swan, which is based on The Angry Swan by Jan van Huysen.
Okay.
And that's from Anna de la Russo.
Yes. Wearing it with pride.
Yeah.
I suppose. In Place Vendôme in Paris.
Actually, funnily enough, one other thing is that you ask what every collection is going to be about. Well, I can give you a world exclusive. My next summer's collection, because they come from everywhere, and I was thinking about, well, what do people want? And I've actually asked 20 of my best clients, what would you like to have a hat for? And I said, it could either be walking the dogs, or going to a party, or going to ice skating on the moon, whatever you want it to be. And I asked all these different people by email and I was going to create a hat for them. And I had the most fantastic reply from Anna de la Russo, and she said, "Why do people save wearing hats for like Royal Ascot or a wedding? Why don't people want to wear hats every day?" She said, "I believe the centre of fashion is Paris." Sorry, Italy. I believe the centre of fashion is Paris, and believe the centre of the Paris fashion world is the Place Vendôme. That's like its centre, and that's why she's there. And I have to tell you something else. That's also why Ray Kawakubo has her office in the Place Vendôme, is because she believes that's the centre of the fashion world, physically.
Thank you for this tip.
Yeah.
Good. This is another creation for Comme des Garçons that is incredible. And then here shows, your long-standing collaboration with
Raf,
with
Dior,
with the House of Dior, and then with Raf Simons here.
And this was his first season. I'd actually, obviously I worked with John Galliano for many years.
And you were the hatter in residence.
And I still am. Yes. And actually, I knew Raf before he came to Dior because we worked together at Jill Sander. But he's not a very hatty person. So, for example, at the moment, what I'm doing is making these things like these neck bows, as well as veils.
Okay.
And funnily enough, we were talking about the way that the veil came around. He said, "Well, I'm not very hatty." I said, "Well, so what are we going to do?" This was really the first season for the haute couture that the veils came from. And I said, "So what did you do at college?" He said, "Why do you want to know?" I said, "I'm sure I can find something in your college work." So he, in fact, contacted his mother, and he got his portfolio from his final college project. And I looked through the portfolio, and on page number 25 or something was a picture of a girl with a veil on. I said, "Well, that's what we're doing."
Well done, amazing. Anyway, I think we have to go a bit quicker here. So this is a creation for Todd's,
Alessandra, and this is for Acne.
And then we go
Donna
here.
Karan.
This
Summer, and this is for Ungaro.
And
Faster. And this is for Louis Vuitton.
For Louis Vuitton, this is for the last...
For Marc Jacobs.
The
Marc
goodbye
I've known
collection.
from years. I knew him when he was disco dancing on a glitter box in many a nightclub in early 80s New York.
And this is so much fun. This is literally your latest collaboration with Tom Brown. That is rather recent.
And I know him through Andrew Bolton at The Nest. I mean, yes, you can talk about nepotism and everything, but
we'll talk another time.
Yeah, but it's, you know, friends of friends of friends, and this is Olympia Letain, Pierre.
And then again, these are so much fun.
These are so much fun.
This is the idea of, you know, the masculine, you know, the men's tailoring.
Yeah,
up
actually, I had to say that I thought we could make these in the way that you'd made a hat. And it didn't work. They just looked like children's toys. So we actually had to tailor, as proper tailoring, tailor the jackets one by one. Otherwise, they just looked wrong. They didn't go with the clothes. And you know, if you're doing a hat and you want to make it a fabulous hat, well, why not make it a really fabulous hat?
Exactly. Anyway, the fabulous hats you've done,
that's
and
like
you
dress,
made so many.
This is Tom.
And then we just want to go to scroll some images of celebrity. I think that we have to go. Sorry to cut you short. But you know, little celebrities wearing it, you know, from Kate Moss.
Did you notice the huge sapphire on the top?
Real sapphire.
Yeah,
a real one.
Real, of course.
And then the lovely Gwyneth and Nicole Kidman.
There she is, gorgeous. Sarah Jessica Parker, Lady Gaga.
And then to end with a fun Rihanna picture.
Yeah. Tell you a funny story about Rihanna.
Yes. And then after that we have to...
About Rihanna. So,
we have to move him out, actually.
Yeah, a few years ago, I was backstage at your show and I saw Rihanna in the backstage area walking towards me. And she had one of my hats on. I thought, wow, I didn't know she bought that. She had that. And I went up to her and I said, you don't know me, but I have to say you're wearing one of my hats. And she said, of course I know who you are. You're Stephen Jones. I said, really, you know? And she said, well, yes, I bought this at Dover Street Market. And Susie Menkes was just there to her left of me, and she said, you bought it? You went scented, like a Starbucks. And she said, well, yes, of course, I really enjoy shopping. So I do love Rihanna.
Thank you so much, Stephen. It's been really fantastic.
Okay.
Have we got time for questions, or do we go to Giambattista? If there is any questions, be brief and quick, and Stephen will be really quick to answer, no? Is there any question?
I will fall asleep.
Well,
yeah, because Jamba is
ready, ready and
come
showered and ready to
gorgeous.
Go. So, but, like, I'll give you a question anyway. But what are you working now? I mean, after you go back to London tomorrow on Monday, what's on the next sketching book?
Well, you know, the men's shows are just around the corner. So that's Tom Brown and Walter van Beerentonk, and I'm working on a book. There's being a documentary made of me. You know, blah blah blah. So many different things every day.
We wish you all the best of luck.
And of course, you know, do you ever get used to it? No. Every time I make a hat, every time I make a selection of hats for a designer, it's a bit like the first time. You never get used to it.
Great, fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you.